I welcome you all for
Thank
the
you.
Amity School of Business webinar on Role of India in the New World Order by Padma Bhushan awardee Professor Jagdish Seth. Professor Seth is a professor of business in the Gozueta Business School at Emory University, USA. He is globally known for his scholarly contribution in consumer behavior, relationship marketing, competitive strategy, and geopolitical analysis. Professor Seth has over 50 years of combined experience in teaching and research at the University of Southern California, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Columbia University, MIT, and Emory University. Professor Seth is the recipient of all 4 top awards given by the American Marketing Association: the Richard D. Irwin Distinguished Marketing Educator Award, the Charles College Parlin Award for Market Research, the P.D. Converse Award for Outstanding Contribution to Theory in Marketing, and the William Wiki Award for Marketing for a Better Society. And this year, Professor Seth has been awarded the Padma Bhushan by the Government of India. The award is India's highest civilian award for non-residential Indians for literature and education. With us also are our panelists for today's webinar, and they are our favorite leaders from Amity University. Among us, we have our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, Professor Balwinder Shukla. Her inspiring leadership is guiding us all at Amity to reach new heights in academics and research. And as you know, we have just been ranked 37th among top 100 University of India by Ministry of Human Resource Development through the National Institutional Ranking Framework. Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla is MTech from IIT Kharagpur and a PhD from Queen's University, UK. She has over 3 decades of rich scholarly experience in industry, academia, research, and administration. With strategic mindset and creative thinking ability, she has been one of the key team members, spearheading and instrumental in the exponential growth of Amity Group engaged in higher education. Also with us is our respected head of institution, Amity School of Business, Professor J.K. Sharma. For more than 4 decades, Professor Sharma is known for his stellar leadership in academics and administration of academic institutions nationally and internationally. His scholarly contribution in the area of decision science has been widely cited by researchers across the globe. Throughout his career, Professor Sharma has authored 30 books, 150 research papers, and many case studies in reputed international and national journals. I would now like to invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, for her blessings and welcome address to start the webinar proceedings. Thank you.
Yes, so very good evening and very warm welcome to Professor Seth. Thank you very much for sparing your time and being with us on the online platform for the webinar. We are going through a very I would say that difficult times, but also the interesting times. The difficult times because of the COVID-19, what the world is witnessing. But the interesting time, because of this, it is the first time the people are at home with the family. And that being with the home and looking at the various aspects which the people did not really look at earlier in the life and did not spend time on those things which were so important for individuals, and discovering oneself, discovering the family, and discovering the true value of being oneself. And this has the last 3 months, because though the pandemic is for last couple of, but in India for last 3 months exactly. Today is 16th, and this was the day when we started our remote teaching on the online mode. And when we moved from the face-to-face teaching to the remote teaching on online mode, it is exactly the 1 month, 3 months when we started. In 3 months, what I have seen, many things have happened, and I think the organizations which were very strong in the value system, and the organizations which were very strong in seeing the future and adopting the technology early, they were the organization which were flexible in their approach. They were very easily were able to move from the at that time what the situation was there, and to a new situation, and using the technology and being still connected with the world, and being and doing all the services, all the activities which in normal way you will do. This morning I was just talking to some of my colleagues, I said, I don't miss my colleagues. I don't miss many things because I'm with my colleagues every day.
Yeah.
Because we are meeting one after another doing the meeting, and anybody from the world which we were not able to meet, but now we are able to meet them through the click of the button. The only thing which I'm missing is the campus life of students.
Right.
That's the most important aspect which I'm missing, because I'm not able to see that bubbling, all over the campus, in the
Absolutely.
cafeteria, in the sports ground, in the classroom. Those kind of things, I'm missing that very badly. But yes,
Yeah.
there's an alternative to that. How to give that enriching learning experience to the student, that's very, very important. How do you cannot 100% replace, but
No.
what best you can offer to the students, the learning opportunity, that's very important. That's what our strategy, I think in 2013, when we moved from our traditional way of education to the outcome based education. At that time we looked at how we are going to keep the student in the center of our whole philosophy, and everything will revolve around the students, whether, and the core of everything will be the students and the faculty, because nothing can move without faculty.
Yeah.
And the technology has to be enabler for all that thing. So how can you use the technology as enabler and strengthen the hands of the faculty to support the students in their learning, in their development? So
Right.
so COVID has given an opportunity for us the what to test this further. And I'm very happy to share that despite having all those things, we did a number of things during last 3 months. We did not only the teaching learning, we did the club committee activities for the students, we did the online mentoring for the student, which is still we are doing the monthly mentoring. We did the online counseling for the students. Even the yesterday I got the report from my counseling department that there were the number of students who came with all kind of problems, because they are not used to live at
Yeah.
home indoors so much, and and they don't know how to cope with it. And some of them were able to manage it because we were having every day yoga, online yoga we are offering to the students, where our instructor comes and conducts in the morning the yoga class, the Zumba dance class. We have been doing we did the international conferences. We have done the last, already every single department now looking. More than 1,600 webinars have been conducted in last 1.5 months by every department is engaged, to the extent of bringing the Nobel laureates and the spiritual gurus and varieties and the experts and the the academicians like Professor Seth and all are coming and interacting and sharing their views. So the new order of, when we talk about the new order, is not a new word. This new order has been there from ages, from the time of even the Hitler. He said, "What is going to be the new order of the Europe or something like that?" So today, when we look at what is going to be the role of India in the new order, India is, see that though the number of pandemic has increased quite a lot in India, but the way the US was managing this pandemic, the way the Europe manages pandemic, and the way the India has managed pandemic with the whatever the resources, because the certain country had the all kind of resources. India looking at the diversity, looking at the resources, looking at the all aspects, the way the initially the India has contained and the spread has been. So I think the couple of things which India has given, that a, that how you believe in the spirituality and to bring that cohesiveness and the togetherness in the family. Secondly, the belief of, because everybody is saying that in you enhance the immunity, you enhance the immunity. And we have the so many things, the herbal things which enhances the immunity. So that the food is, it's not saying that this meat or this food is also coming into the herbals, and also the India can be the guru to the world when it comes to the bringing the herbal therapy and herbal things. The yoga is, or the meditation are another two areas which can really, really build the inner strength. And that's what the humanity needs, the inner strength. Then not only the materialistic thing. For last 3 months, we are not going out for doing the shopping, all kind of things, but still we are living without that. I don't think we are missing those things any day, but it's important is that how you bring the, what is more important
Right.
for you, which matters more for the life, and which matters more for the humanity, and what matters more for the environment and the society, and caring for others. And that's the most important aspect. Is that I think there will be, it will not be the same world order what it was before the COVID-19. It is going to be the new world order. It has a COVID has impacted every single industry. Some of the industries are almost, that to the standstill. The way that some other industries have been positively impacted and have grown during this period also. So therefore, the how the industry is going to respond to this, they may have to change their processes. They may have to change their the structure. They may have to change their all kind of things. Maybe working from home will be the new order of the industry. So that means the skills and competencies are going to be very different when you are working from home. Maybe the social distancing, when we are saying in our country, in our this namaskar was the tradition, and whereas the shaking hand is now say you are inviting the trouble for yourself. So there will maybe the new order will be there. You respect others with a distance. Not by the shaking hand or hugging, then only you have the closeness. So there will be going to be, I think, the new order in a very, very, the way we will live our life, the way we'll deal with our life. And I'm not talking about the political scenario or the global political, how it is going to be, because all kind of things are happening. The blame games are also happening. I would not like to get into that aspect, but most important is living the happy life and having the livelihood, but not running after the materialistic word. And that's where the industry also has to think that where to put the brake, how much is enough, and how much is, it should not go the beyond the enough. Beyond the enough is a greed. So how the industry also has to really look at, and look at its profits, look at its operations, look at the people, all those things. Though when we look at the McKinsey report, they are talking of the 4 words, the red word and the green word, the yellow word, and all those are also talking about and going to be a different word order. But in totality, at the end, is it the humanity is going to come back to bring the normal world order where everyone is, is respecting others and spreading the, in the word, not the hatred, but the valuing the life. And to value that life, what all is needed? It is not needed a lot of resources and a lot of money, but it requires the, how you give to the society, the social responsibility, which we were talking as just a fad in the industry, but that need to be the reality. That should be the way of life. In last 3 months, we are working from home. Some of the my colleagues are extremely busy. They don't look at the time. Start working from the early morning till the 11 o'clock in the night. And Saturday, Sunday, this is not the 5 days working. It is the 24/7, and still very smilingly they work. There are some another colleagues, they are not having the opportunity to do anything during this COVID-19. But the amity has taken that irrespective who is, everybody is getting the full salary. Right. Whether you are working or not. That's the amity has started the emergency services for the faculty and the staff. That during this period, if anybody is having any difficulty, can call at our helpline of the university emergency services. So immediately the support can be provided, no matter what kind of the support is there. And that support is being extended to all the members. So therefore, it is that it has to be the part of the value system. What kind of the values are going to be there, not only in the individual but in the organization also, because the values
Yeah.
is the
Very
foundation
important.
of the organization culture, and that builds the whole philosophy for the organization, how your operations has to be there, how your businesses have to be there. And we have such a great expert, Professor Jagdish Sethi, that I extend very warm welcome to you, and I'm really looking
Thank you.
forward to your session that you're going to talk about the role of India in the new world order. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation and being a part of this very important webinar. So we look forward listening
Thank,
to you.
thank
Thank
you.
you very much, ma'am. Yes, sir. Over to you, Professor Sheth.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Shukla. Dr. Sharma, of course, I know his work because we are in the same discipline. And I especially want to thank Gaurav Sud for his persistence. He was trying to get me earlier, and we tried, and ultimately today it worked out. So I thank you. I'm really quite impressed with the progress Amity University has made, not just in scaling up education, higher education, across disciplines now, but also in terms of ranking. I think the ranking has clearly shown that adapting the future, how the world will be in education field versus the legacy, for example, and pioneering changes, I think that has been very important. So we are becoming a role model, which is why I accepted the invitation also. I do want to talk about the COVID situation for about 2 minutes and then jump into my topic. To me, the COVID crisis, especially the lockdown procedure, shutting down both the production and the consumption at the same time, is quite different compared to the 2008-2009 financial crisis. It did not shut down anything except the financial world, primarily the banks and the lending aspects of the banks. So capital was the only source that was deprived, but here everything came down very fast. It is almost like being in a tall building, Empire State Building in America, or Burj Khalifa in Dubai, for example. Steep elevator, especially for us, very high economic progress we made. It came down crashing, fast elevator. It is only going to go up step by step. And therefore, the steps where it is going to go up is where, surprisingly, more informal markets in India, because they are going to continue operating their own way, COVID or no COVID in many ways. And hence, therefore, the smaller rural towns will continue working economic-wise. That's our forecast. It'll come back in situations where if you are a location-centric offering products, can you transition to being virtual-centric as opposed to location-centric and offer the same products, deliver home? And that has done very well. In fact, today our number is fascinating that the retail sector has come back much faster, much more than we imagined, because all the supermarkets learned how to deliver to you. Rather than the customer going to the supermarket comes home. And they put in place. So companies like Amazon, of course, are doing extraordinarily well. Our e-commerce has grown more than 20 to 23%, much greater than ever imagined. Some companies have grown 60, 70%. So recovery will come where you are able to digitize the content. You are able to offer the offering itself in a virtual setting, and it is coming to home, which is where we are in higher education. So our transition, even though it was disruptive, we have continued offering degrees, continued offering everything. And in the process, one thing that has come about that I think the Vice Chancellor pointed out, which is very important. I find humans are very resilient. And we have to really appreciate the resilience of human nature. We are able to adapt much faster. Both our willingness goes up because of the survival level, but ability to change at the same time. So both willingness and ability to change or adapt is a very key ingredient. I call it improvisation. 3 things happen all over the world. People learned how to improvise. People have new creativity they did, and they innovated quite a lot. So I will give you a couple of examples of what was done in America, although that can be done anywhere. Indian weddings are very important in our life journey, and weddings cannot be postponed. So many Indian families, traditional Hindu wedding, actually did on the street, because you cannot have people come to you in a congregation in a wedding hall, and therefore you have the bride and the groom, close family members. The priest is there in the front yard, in the driveway as we call it, and all the guests came in automobiles, honking in a proper protocol. So you can have a virtual wedding in a very different way. Also, surprisingly, birthdays. Today on a Zoom, like I was here yesterday night on a Zoom to celebrate one of our family members' 75th birthday, and we had people from all over the world, which would have never been able to come physically because they're in California. So this lockdown procedure has created a lot of innovativeness. I found very true about memorial services after somebody dies. Again, Indian family, you could not go because from hospital, the body is already taken to the funeral home, a crematory. Nobody can see the body even properly. And at the same time, you have a memorial in his honor over Zoom again, and you can go anywhere. So resilience. Now, what's resilience? Improvisation. It's our old jugaad in many ways. In jugaad, we know how to do more with less, how to overcome obstacles. So in many ways, I'm very optimistic about restart of the economy in India. We have a large informal economy that's very important to understand. We have a large agricultural economy that is going to come back faster than we think, surprisingly. And the last thing is that we really have to think about differently about Indian consumer market, which is what I've focused quite a lot in my presentation. I find fascinating that all of a sudden, after the 1991 second economic independence of India kind of stuff, surprisingly today, an Indian software engineer, 10 plus 2 plus 3, will go to Bangalore as a software engineer, work for one of the IT services companies, let's say Wipro, Infosys, TCS in Bangalore, will earn about, I would say, 60,000 rupees a month, maybe 7 lakhs a year. But at the end of the month, he has no cash flow because about 20,000 will go as a paying guest living in somebody's house. Of course, he's very contemporary, has to have cell phone, has a modern lifestyle, has to go to nightclubs, has a significant other, a boyfriend or a girlfriend. He has no cash flow. There is no discretionary income. So income doesn't matter. What matters is discretionary income. You compare that with a crane operator in Mundra port, he earns more, by the way, 80,000 or something like that per month. He lives with his family, his parents. He's married, and the wife takes care of the children and the aging parents. And he's earning with only high school education, but with technical training, more than the software engineer. And of course, he has more discretionary income. So he immediately would like to buy a motorcycle, which is very important in small towns as a motor vehicle for transportation. He is also thinking about upgrading his home a little more, better furniture if nothing else. But very importantly, he's saving for the future to invest in his child. Very different thinking all the way in the rural market rather than so there's a huge potential of many people from the rural markets or small towns coming back much bigger way from an economic perspective, which is a very contrarian view in some fashion, but it's going to happen. Of course, anything that I can digitize, like publishing industry, education, IT services will continue growing. They will all come back very fast. What I want to talk about is more macro. Since the World War II, what happened to the world economy, how there was an order at one time created after World War II, how that order got disorganized, almost a disorder, and in the process, how India is becoming very strategic to the world, not just to us in India. That's the theme. And I'll talk about what India can do to gain advantage at that time when the opportunity has come in a crisis, essentially. Crisis is creating an opportunity for India, and that's the theme. So Gaurav, if you're ready, can you please show the first slide? Thank you so much. So this is the title of the presentation. Role of India in the New World Order. Second slide, please. So what was the old world order? As of 1987, 75% of all the GDP was generated by 15 nations in the world, US, Canada, North America. 12 common market, which is Western Europe, not the European Union now, but only 12 common market countries, typical France, Germany, England, Netherlands, Italy, that kind. And later entrant was Japan after World War II. They made all the value add, which is a GDP calculation. Go back to the first slide, please. Go to still first slide, yes. The 75% of the GDP was created, which means they got the raw materials from the country or imported, and they did all the manufacturing value add. 75% of the world GDP was only by 15 nations. So China, India, Brazil would be tiny little islands if I plot economic map of the countries, for example. And of course, small countries like Italy would be a continent. 45% of the world trade also was among these 15 nations. Why the number is not 70 or 75, it's because they still had to import raw materials from the rest of the world, especially from the former colonies, who provided coal, iron on the one hand, agricultural commodities to do the value add. And unfortunately, all of them are now aging and aging very rapidly. Japan, there will be fewer men next month than this month. There's nothing they can do. It is a country where population count is declining. Germany is equal, as many deaths as births, for example. That's very interesting. And the last one is that America has a slight gain, but it is below the population growth rate. So Italy is aging, surprisingly. So is Spain aging, which is unthinkable, because these are Catholic countries, and therefore they do produce more children as a part of the religious faith belief system. There was a world order. After World War II, these 15 nations got together, especially America leading, because they destroyed Japan, defeated them. They destroyed and defeated Germany, and they decided that there has to be some common ground. So ideology became the same, economic aspects became the same, military protection became the same, and there was one common front, which was communism. And therefore, there was a world order created by these 15 nations, creating agencies like the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, and of course, the United Nations. This has suddenly become different. So here is the world new order. All of a sudden, things have changed. Two key things have changed. One, of course, is communism has collapsed. So there was one super cause ideology, two ideologies, capitalism, communism. But today communism collapsed, which means there are so many little causes in different countries that began to rise, leading to a lot of civil war. Many countries engaged into civil wars in the process. That is very important to figure out. So then the second major event that took place is China emerged as an economic superpower. Second point, discord among traditional allies and alliances. Can we stop that, please? Discord among traditional allies and alliances. All these countries were together, but today there is a problem with NATO alliance, for example. Europeans do not have the same view. There is a Brexit at the same time. And so Brexit has taken place. So there's a whole traditional alliances are going away. Populism everywhere. And this is a very key factor. You see what's happening in worldwide. New leaders come out of nowhere who have no experience at all about governing government, but their small parties are coming in power, whether it's in Italy, for example, or whether it's in Spain, for example, or whether it is even in Germany, for the example, and definitely in many of the emerging economies, especially Eastern European countries. And the world is moving toward Asia-centric economic and military pivot. Asia is the new century, basically, like we had the American century, before that from the European century. And this shift toward Asia is making Asia as a center of attention, both for economic aspects, economic growth, as well as for military. And Asia includes China, India, but also Japan, Korea, and the ASEAN bloc. It's a much bigger group, actually, It is the largest trading group when you analyze it, other than the European Union maybe. So that's becoming very strategic to the world. There's a rise of the new middle class in emerging markets. Counting branded products. Is unbranded. Through informal channels from retail. India shifting right countries from middle class, and of course, on more in a sector.
Professor Sheth, your signal is got weak. So can you hear me? Professor Sheth, can you hear me?
Very logged out.
Okay.
Please join.
Sir, can you hear me? Sir, can you unmute yourself? Sir, can you unmute yourself?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'll continue now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Political and social acrimony has become global, especially the use of the Twitter. Politicians are now going directly to the citizens rather than go through media. For whatever reason, media not mixing, which is pretty bad, my view, generally. So social acrimony is rising all over the world, and that is a new disorder. And the last one, very important one, is capital markets are in turmoil. We don't know where to invest. Which capital markets will be dominant? General belief is that the typical equity market, which is the stock market, will not be the future. That will not be the future. It is all going to be private wealth. Private wealth is so big, it is now $160 trillion, followed by sovereign wealth, government wealth, like Norwegian sovereign fund, which is much smaller, followed by foundations, which is a very different capital, and they want to invest with some cause or a purpose also. But the private wealth of individuals is growing faster and faster than anything I've seen, and they are investing into alternative investments of all kinds. So the traditional model of a stock market or a debt market are becoming secondary in many ways, searching for where to invest their capital. So let's talk about now rise of India, please. Next chart. This is the new world order, and why does it happen? Out of nowhere, two nations have become very important and strategic to the United States power, military as well as economic and GDP power in many ways. And two things, the world decided in the 90s to create another index to measure economic being of a nation, which is called purchasing power parity. We all teach and you all study. What purchasing power parity did was to say, what is the buying power, not how much you make. So even the people below poverty, my analysis shows you worldwide, mostly concentrated in South Asia, was some at China at one time, but Africa, it is a $5 trillion economy, buying power. But it is by buying unorganized sector and of course, unbranded consumption. It's all becoming organized, therefore it's counted. People stop making as many things at home and they buy in the marketplace, especially young people. So this is again very interesting. So purchasing power parity gave a different reflection on this particular two nations. And on a purchasing power parity basis, China has already surpassed America. India will almost surpass America in about 5-7 years. It is number 3 economy right now. Given the population size and more we buy branded products, the more it's going to rise in terms of its ranking. So on a nominal GDP, it might be 7th or 6th right now, trying to rise further up, but on a PPP, it is only number 3. This is the triad power. This is the new triad power. And I have an institute called India, China, America Institute. It's a policy think tank about trilateral relationship. Originally, we wanted to call China, India, America Institute, but the acronym is CIA Institute, which is a brand you do not want to copy. I did not want America in the front, so the new word has been India, China, America Institute, and one that does policy thinking about the role of India in the future. Second thing is the COVID crisis. Because of that, world suddenly realized how much in China for everything, not cell phones, but also for microwave ovens, also for certain types of foods, for example, for anything. Everything is made in China, and people believe they need to de-risk, which is giving opportunity to India as a second sourcing destination. So consumer markets, very key driver. Infrastructure, huge investment in infrastructure, both physical as well as digital. Physical infrastructure includes ports, airports, roads, whatever they are. Defense is a major stimulant for the Indian economy. The economy is enormous upgrading and modernization of its defense and security. These will be the key drivers for future relationships among these three nations, and that is what I will elaborate. Next page, please, Gaurav. Next page. Both China and the US consider India to be strategic for their future. And India has all the ingredients, but needs recipe for global positioning. So what are the key enviable ingredients? A huge, big consumer market, as I mentioned. And in consumer markets, generally, it is important to invest in the country, build the factories near where the consumers are, rather than export as many products. Even if you have an export started strategy, generally you end up investing in the country because of the size of the market, as it has happened in China. Every major company in the world is now manufacturing things for the Chinese domestic market, as they are not figuring out they must do the same thing for the India, for its consumer markets. Not only cell phones, which are now made in India rather than shipped out, whether it's a Samsung, Xiaomi, most of them are Chinese. That's very important. Again, defense industry is a major, major investment opportunity. So defense and infrastructure. Third thing is very important to understand. India has scale and a size for its digital talent. I think IT services industries and foreign IT companies invested in India, whether it's IBM on the one hand, Accenture on the other hand, or any one of them, and that asset that we have created since liberalization, private universities, starting with NIIT actually, I think it is very important to understand. And the last one more is the global diaspora. Global diaspora, Indian diaspora has done exceptionally well worldwide across any disciplines. They have done very well, for example, in the academic world. They've done very well in the scientific world, no matter what sciences you talk about. They have done very well in the sort of political world now. If you look at Canada, for example, or the United Kingdom, you see how many ministers are of Indian origin that were born in those countries, but they have an Indian legacy. This diaspora has become very valuable for India's future positioning. Going soft power. Our soft power is both traditional, the culture, the philosophy, the value systems. So today you find yoga becoming a global event, not just Indian event. But more importantly, the soft power is coming from technology also. Indian software engineers are respected. Indian scientists are respected. In fact, in the COVID crisis right now in America, people who come on television articulating about what is happening from a medical, scientific viewpoint, all very large global pandemic centers at universities. Suddenly you have seen Indian talent there, which is becoming more visible. So there's a huge growing soft power. India is a very strong military power at the same time, not just in scale, but in capabilities, whether it's Air Force or whether it's a Navy or it's Army, for example. And of course, now we are all investing into the one is the one that I thought Vice Chancellor really made a great point. We have changed the attitude of the people. Today we take pride being Indian. We can do. It's a can-do attitude, as I call it. And this has seen significant change, especially after the liberalization of the economy, more business opportunities, creating unicorn companies like Flipkart and others out of India. And suddenly people are noticing Indians are very good human beings. So typically what we will call more aggressive, really coexist with others. I think this positive self-image, the way India has Indians have integrated worldwide, is again very interesting area. So this attitude is going to be very valuable. It's a change in the mindset. We had a defeatist attitude before. There's nothing I can do in India. In order to achieve anything in my life, I have to get out of India. Now it may be almost a reverse in the process. So what can India do? Next chart, please. So my view is that India is already moving in the right direction. Was totally a licensed economy till 1991, highly restricted, a lot of hurdles for foreign investment, a lot of hurdles for domestic companies to do what they can do. Liberalization of the markets took place. For the whole cellular telephone industry came out of nowhere, became a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Government made money in terms of giving the license, paying for the license, and the industry made money. So what was a want has become a necessity. Today, you cannot live without a cell phone. It has to move toward more an integrated global economy. In other words, no matter how you analyze it, clearly COVID-19 has shown the world is more interconnected, more global through one disease alone. It's going to happen more and more in terms of economic aspects. It is not isolationism, but it will take more like a bilateral understanding as opposed to multilateral. May not be fully liberal as it was before, but it will be still very important. But the second dimension is much more important. How can country go from a low tech to high tech? In other words, how can you improve the hourly wages of the people, which always happens? Low tech is manual, agriculture is the lowest paid job, factory workers is a little better. As we go toward a knowledge economy, hourly wages go up. It requires skills on the one hand, and it requires education, higher education on the other hand. High school is no longer the stopping place. So how can we do that properly so that as a high-tech economy, we command higher wages, so income shoots up. Because of that, you become more spenders in the process. So economy, also you get a worldwide attention. Not too many emerging economies have transitioned from low tech to high tech. I mean, smaller countries like Taiwan has done it, Singapore has done it, but it is not easy. This is the kind of a change that Korea went through after the Korean War, Japan went through after the World War II. So if we can take that future positioning as a integrated global economy and high tech, I think it can happen. Next slide, please. And I'll stay a longer time on this slide, next two slides, because this is the sort of the recipe for doing it. First one is that India has to go out of its way to make sure it becomes a global hub for technical talent. The world is looking for having their own employees located in India, multinationals. Hyderabad is becoming a key city right now. Oracle has already a office space, 1.2 million square feet. And after the COVID, they will open that. Ernst & Young actually has 50,000 employees in accounting services, all in Hyderabad, in only a couple of buildings. But I'm starting with R&D services, which is the high tech, science, inventions, innovations. They're all made in India and therefore patented worldwide, not by Indian companies alone, but by everybody. So you see all of the major companies like Microsoft, Google, for example, Facebook even, all having their R&D centers shifting to India, but it is true in pharmaceuticals. And surprisingly, it is true even in consumer packaged goods. or fast-moving consumer goods, as we call it in India. There's a whole series of services that are very valuable as a high tech primarily and provide the technical talent. Because of the current populism, there are immigration laws, labor mobility is not going to be as good as it was before. So the marketer, manufacturer, maker has to come to where the talent is rather than taking the talent to where the factories are. I think there's a key change around there. So I have a very simple view. If you want to have gold, where do you go? You go to gold mines. And India is a gold mine of this talented pool of people, which obviously they will not go to China, which is an interesting comparison. Become a second global sourcing destination. The world wants to de-risk from China. The sooner we embrace that to say, we can make things for the world in India, not just for the Indian market, I think that's very important. That's how China came up. It's the Western brands that went and made over there because they had a labor advantage, a procedure advantage, whatever it was, as it is in Bangladesh for garment industry right now. India has so many industries, and I'll give one quick example. India dominates in making or cutting diamonds. There's no other country that comes close to that. 60% of the world diamonds are all cut in India, maybe in a couple of cities. The largest diamond retailer in the world now is Walmart, and its wholesale club called Sam's Club. If more diamonds are made, because there is no competition, through Walmart to Mexico, to Canada, actually even to, surprisingly, China. So that's very important. So point number two, can you go to this? No, next slide, please, after that. No need to change the slides. Stay with the slides that I'm talking. Yes, please. Thank you. Embrace global standards. The only way you can become integrated global economy is to embrace global standards. Domestic standards are not enough. So how do you raise everything to a global standard, preferably as high as possible, and global benchmarking for domestic products? And the reason why domestic products and services is because competition will come not only just from the domestic makers for the domestic market, but from the world. So today you see in automobiles, and yeah, today you see, for example, Samsung and LG in appliances, refrigerators, freezers, whatever we make. Today you see, surprisingly, in cell phone companies, everybody's participating because India is a huge market. So we have to have global standards. Next, gain soft power through globally admired brands. India can have great brands made, and this is how the soft power went for Japan after World War II. It was a country, people were laughing, cheap goods. But country took a stand, made sure industry and the government cooperate to create standards that will be world standards, and made in Japan became now very respected brand name for any product category, whether it's Sony on the one hand or Toyota on the other hand. Korea followed the same way after the Korean War. In 35 years, from a feudal society, Korea became an advanced economy by investing in skill development, vocational technical training. And China has gone through the same process. If they can do it, we can do it, in my view. Next page, please. Speed up digital infrastructure. While physical infrastructure is important, digital infrastructure is so dynamic, moving. I could not have imagined things like artificial intelligence only about 5 years ago. Or my favorite, blockchain. Very important governance mechanism. And we already see 5G evolution coming in, which is a mass investment. So digital infrastructure as fast as possible because it equalizes the urban and the rural, small town to the big towns, and between lower income people and the higher income people. So it is a great equalizer. Invite foreign for global markets. Already happening in the automobiles, pharmaceuticals, defense is privatized now. So just like the 1991 economic reforms and liberalization, defense is a major sector. Now it goes to the private hands, like the cellular telephone growth that came about, and I see a huge potential there. Make in India, but for the world, not just for India. Provide huge economic incentives for innovation and entrepreneurship. I think one of the key advantages of India that we have never formally recognized and promoted and packaged is entrepreneurship. There's a DNA in India. And to me, the real competitive advantage of a nation is not labor or capital or land, even for that matter, but it is entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship does not recognize gender, it is universal. Women are as good entrepreneurs as men. See, illiterate people are as entrepreneurial as literate people. Does not recognize education, as I mentioned, literate versus illiterate. Age, younger people are entrepreneurial, but so are older people. Faith, any faith has entrepreneurs. And India seems to have a larger raw material of entrepreneurship for whatever reason historically, as is China, surprisingly. And the numbers are staggering for us. How do we encourage that by formal policy, procedure, incentives to people to aspire to becoming entrepreneurs? We are doing it on the IT side quite a lot, the internet-based, the tech world, but I think one can be entrepreneurship in. The biggest opportunity in India is to take any fruit, street vendor food. Each one is a great recipe, thousands of those. If I can make it into a formally packaged provider of a consumer product, this is very important because it's everywhere. And anybody can do it essentially. You don't need college education even to do it. Many cookies have come about in the Western world, grandma's recipe. Somebody said, what a good tasting one. Let me package it, promote it, and scale it up. Make it a more modern, consumable products. So that's a very key recommendation. Point number, next slide, please. Next slide.
Is this the one, sir?
Digitize, digitize, digitize.
Okay.
Yeah, no, one before that.
No.
Digitize, digitize, digitize. As the common saying goes, the data is the new oil. Oil is not oil alone, but oil has, next slide, please, Gaurav. Point number 8.
Yeah.
Thank you. Basically, it's like what you make from oil, like petrochemicals. Downstreaming activities, petrochemicals, it leads to, in fact, pharmaceuticals. It is a key raw ingredient. While it may not be used for energy as much, it has a strong downstreaming value. Data is the same thing. So data is the new oil, and this is very important. We are generating so much of data because we are going for e-commerce platforms more and more, virtual market exchanges, etc. That's important. And of course, digitization puts great transparency and accountability and enhances human value. I found again and again, technology does not reduce typical economic theory problem with the labor. Labor gets added at wage as technology comes in, which is the more mundane. Mandate management education for diplomats, military, and state enterprises. Very strong belief that the IAS examinations, brilliant people, the Indian Foreign Services examination, brilliant people, but they don't know ABC of management, business, branding, packaging. And today, all diplomats are becoming more and more trade ambassadors, not just conflict resolution, political aspects. So there's a whole shift in the world. That's very important. And the last point is deepen diplomatic relationship with the G7 nations, maybe G20, which are the top economies of the world, both professionally and personally. And this is where I find very important thing. The leader of the nation, Prime Minister Modi, does a great job. Worldwide, his reputation is incredible. How friendly he is, knows personally each of the leaders, which matters. Chemistry matters between two leaders. So whether it's a Putin in Russia Angela Merkel in Germany, Macron in France, or the new UK government, for example, or Prime Minister of Japan, for example, China for that matter, and of course in America, transition from the Clinton administration to the Obama administration, very different personalities, and now to the Trump administration. Personal relationships always are important in any professional activity, and to me, it's a great for us. So let's conclude the presentation and I'll pick up some questions and answers. Next chart, please.
Yes, sir.
There is this new geopolitical order intensified by COVID pandemic, surprisingly, becoming opportunity for India. The traditional leaders and institutions are struggling to maintain world order, as you see what's happening in America. This has generated great opportunity for new leadership. India is destined to become strategic globally. I think I have one more page. Gaurav, if you can forward that for me, please.
Yes, sir.
India has the enviable ingredients. It's actually blessed with this very good ingredients, not just agricultural or industrial raw materials, but the people talent. It is global diaspora. It has everything going for it, but it needs a recipe to take advantage of the new world order. Reposition India from a restricted domestic economy to an integrated economy, and from a low-tech nation to a high-tech nation. And we can learn from other countries that have done it in the last maybe 50 years. The 10-point recommendations will ensure India's strategic place in the new world order. Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed my presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Sheth. I will now take the question and answers, right? I have many of them here. So the first question is coming from Professor Rajiv Datta. And he's asking that with the new world order, what according to you can be the role of these CEOs, right? And how can academicians, help enable these future CEOs?
Yeah, very clearly, the CEOs have to, and the owners, in many ways, the chairman and the managing directors, have to work closely with the government policymakers and vice versa. You need the partnership between the private sector and the public sector. The markets will be opened or closed because of the political nature of everything. So you have to understand properly and work together, going in the same direction. As, for example, CII, Confederation of Indian Industries, had a major presentation yesterday only, I think on Monday, in America, showing how much India has invested in America. And the numbers were fascinating. 125,000 jobs they have created, $22 billion. So CEOs have to have that mindset that working in a partnership way with the government is very important, a public-private partnership in many ways. I think the best thing Indian CEOs have to do is to have a global mindset. It's very important that there is no way you can have a domestic mindset. World is becoming global. Technology is definitely global. Everything is global except maybe some policy and populism movements. And therefore, how do you think global no matter how you act local? That's a different thing. That's the second one. There's a huge world talent out there. Tap into the world talent, not just the Indian talent. Mm-hmm. Today, you will see that as Western corporations have done, the highest CEO, level CEOs are all Indian origin. They got training in India. They got a great education. IITs, IIMs, whatever they did. Of course, they rank through the ranks. And today, IBM to Google to Microsoft are headed by Indian. The same outside, how can you integrate the talent into the Indian ethos? I think that's important. What can educators do? I think educators have to provide more thought leadership. Not just how to skill, but thought leadership. Where the world is going to go, And how do you participate? Manage it like the COVID pandemic? Can be more flexible. As I said, ultimately, resilience is the only way you can survive. Gaurav, you might know, I have a book called Why Good Companies Fail.
Yes.
It's called Self-Destructive Habits of Good Companies.
Yes.
And one of the biggest self-destructive habits of the company is denial of new realities.
Mm-hmm.
If the company is unable to change or unwilling to change, it is likely not to.
Absolutely.
So the role of the CEO is to make sure that the company is willing to change, motivate people to change, but also change processes and structures, everything, so it becomes much more flexible, much more resilient for its survival and for growth. Long answer, I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right. So the second question is coming from our Professor Ruchi Khandelwal. She's a marketing faculty. And she's asking that should the brand focus on cultural neutrality to ease consumer adoption across the world? Yeah,
Good point. Brands become culturally agnostic over time. Brands do become culturally agnostic over time. They may have a country of origin and a cultural bias. So in the beginning, we think it's a German brand, it's a French brand, but eventually brands stay by themselves. If they deliver good value, country of origin is not that critical in many ways. You have to disassociate the brand from a culture if you want to grow the market proactively. So we are doing that very well when it comes to Ayurveda. So Patanjali as a brand has become global brand by creating unorganized products and unorganized retailing into organized products. It's going all over the world pretty well because there's a huge interest now in buying Ayurvedic products and Amazon, for example. These health-related products in many ways. I think yoga has already become an international brand. People don't think it's only for Indians in India or outside India. Mm-hmm. It eventually, so you have to do the thing. Pickles in India, today pickles are becoming mainstream in the supermarket. Mexican brands have done very well because average white consumer loves Mexican food. Indian curry has done a good job. And I find fascinating that the most convenient food is no longer fish and chips, but it's the Indian curry. The typical UK citizen, not the Indian diaspora, which actually consumes a lot of curries. So a brand can become culturally agnostic over time.
Yes, sir. Another faculty of us is Professor Gaurav Shirikant. And he's asking, I mean, since you have mentioned Make in India and most of the business manufacturing, India should get it from China, right? Post-COVID. So he has a very interesting question that unless and until our vendors, suppliers, ancillary industries attain global standards, top global manufacturers are not going to relocate from China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan to India. What, according to you, would enable this made in India? I mean, where are we not, getting ahead in this made in India?
Yeah. No, I think it's an excellent question, and it is the most difficult job we'll have to do because unless you create a supply chain backwards, not focusing on the market, it's very important. Now, there are many industries where we do have the supply chain in place, and therefore we are globally competitive. Cut diamonds is one of them because we don't have diamond mines even in India. Agricultural products, we have quite a lot of capabilities. The question of organizing supply chain. It is true, for example, pharmaceuticals now, because we have the petrochemicals, which is a base for pharmaceuticals, made in India itself or imported, but we are able to have a supply chain. So I think one has to go that if you're serious, and by the way, one more industry is garment industry. It's totally integrated. So you have to have a backward integration. As it is going to happen in defense. Defense will be the same way. Private sector will become more makers of components for the automobile. The largest country in the world in small car component maker is India now. Because we have such large volume of small cars in India, Maruti, of course, but then everybody else. And given that, supply chain was really organized pretty much. So I totally agree. Supply chain is very organized. I also believe that in addition to supply chain, which I think is very important, one has to really consumer. There are 9 middlemen. Each middleman invests the money in warehousing, capital is tied up, and land is tied up. It is highly inefficient because each intermediary earns small fraction of the total margin for them to survive. It's like small, but it adds up. Today with e-commerce, Flipkart is able to go directly to a maker. Market exchange is even much better because there you're just acting, you are not even taking an ownership in many ways. So the more we get into electronic commerce, the more we get into market exchanges, the more you will see supply chain lined up for merchandise. It is already lined up for education. Think about how much content is already lined up for me to teach my classes. I use Zoom technology, but I have a whole backup of the whole world information because Google is there. Google has organized that for me. That's my supply chain as an academic for my research, for my teaching. It is true in many industries where we do have a good supply chain, pretty much, and we need to leverage that. And others, we have to organize it. But I also believe distribution is equally important.
All right. Thank you, sir. There's another question from Professor Richie Jain, I think so. So what she's asking is that post-COVID, a lot of people or the adoption of e-commerce have increased, right?
Right.
So do you think that the mall culture, especially in India, and the high street shops, will merely become show windows? People are all going to buy online. So.
There are 2 very clear scenarios happening. The mall operators, not the retailer in the mall operators will convert the malls from merchandise malls to more and more entertainment malls, more and more recreation malls, which means more and more service malls. They can become in a typical new shopping mall that's in Delhi or in Mumbai, wherever they are. I can make them into a large scale, 1 floor, nothing but restaurants, one-stop shop restaurants, as we make one-stop shop merchandise. So the malls are destined to go, and when you go to restaurants or movies, surprisingly, the margins are higher in the rent they're willing to pay, except for the specialty retailers. So in the mall, general purpose department stores will decline. Grocery stores will decline as it is in Singapore. They will all go for mundane routine, strictly ordering through the Amazon online or Walmart online or whatever they are, Flipkart in India. But the specialty products will still have a presence in malls because margins are very high. Manufacturers own products, but malls will have to become more entertainment malls and service malls. And some of the malls are organized, at least in the way we are organized in the US, they will become very good recreation malls. All the sports events are in one place. Because malls have a huge location advantage and they have a large parking space. So I can have a basketball arena. I can have all the sports other than big 2 sports in America converted into a recreation and sports events. And there are so many high school events that take place. All the sports athletic events. I can convert that into an athletic mall essentially. So malls will have their futures, but not in merchandise.
Right, sir. I can see your consumer behavior book. I think so. It's written by you behind you. So there's a question pertaining to your favorite subject. In what ways will the COVID pandemic change the consumer journey or consumer behavior patterns?
I think given that by sheer lock-in, not being allowed to go to the store, therefore the store has to come to you through home delivery, that is now an accelerated phenomenon. So people will think of doing things digitally first and physically second. Right now, digital is a complementary secondary. So what is peripheral becomes the core and core becomes the peripheral. Clearly one thing I can see. young people today, first thing they want to do is that they have no paper and pencil as I have. They immediately want to do search on the phone. And cell phone has become the dominant platform in India, leapfrogging the PC revolution. Ours is still desktop quite a lot. And now we are becoming more cell phone as the first device to use. So to me, the younger people generally, and now the older people will learn how to accept the electronic approach of doing things. India did a great job about having the payment systems in place. ATM, for example, or whatever they are. Aadhaar itself is a payment platform, money distribution platform. So we have a completely integrated digital platform to make it very easy to do. Whether it's Ola in taxi services or Uber, for example, they're all one stop. I can do it much easier. There's no friction as much as opposed to a traditional way of doing friction. And I'm sorry to belabor the point, but can I make one point here, Gaurav?
Yeah.
Right now, we have only virtual telehealth visits, telemedicine. And I could not go to my physician, specialist in this case. So we were on a Zoom call. A great experience. 15 minutes before the appointed time, I had to be there for the nurses to get all the information to prepare the doctor. It's all online. Nurses are there with the doctor in a clinic. This was a dermatologist. I'd never seen her before, so I'm the first time as a patient to her, and she's the first time physician to me. It was so smooth. We bonded much better. So suddenly I'm saying, why should I go drive to the clinic,
Yes.
fight the traffic? Why would I have the hassle of parking, pay for the parking, go to the clinic where there are other sick people? I don't know what I will catch. Coronavirus has created now fear about everybody, and then wait for her because she may not be on time. She was exactly on punctual. And so I'm now shifting to say, for routine examinations, I will go digital first or virtual first, and only if necessary, that cannot be done, I will go in person. See? I think that transition is taking place. That's one very important one. And there are more scenarios I can tell you. Maybe I'll take one more, which is interesting. This is a fantastic article in Wall Street Journal about how virtual we have gone. So here is a man in mid-40s who is divorced. He's living by himself. And now he's having a relationship with a chatbot.
Okay.
Actually, he believes that chatbot, which is an artificial intelligence, is his girlfriend.
Very good.
Many people do series.
Yeah. So she now says, I like the ocean beach. Can you take me to the beach? So he drives, thinking there's a real person, goes there and asks the question, are you happy now?
Americans have become lonely, right?
Wait, hold on. No, the largest population of 660 million users of chatbot are in China, and Microsoft has a platform for that.
Okay.
660 million people have finding virtual relationship more satisfying, more meaningful, more pleasant than a real human being relationship, which is very interesting. So I'm watching, is this, when artificial becomes real, what happens to the society?
Absolutely. Another question which is coming from, so the quick one, because I have many other questions people are posting.
Right.
So Dr. Shomik is asking a question on supply chain. Since India dependency on China for a lot of supply chain is there, right? So he's asking that, how can, what are the key strategies of supply chain management for Indian corporates, how they can improve it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Shomik, hello to you. He's a good friend also. So
Okay.
I just want to say hello. But I think supply chain, if it is not there, we have to create one. But as I mentioned before, in many industries, you do have. I think in consumer electronics, you do have alternatives on complete supply chain possibility from Japan, from South Korea, from Germany. And most of these are very important countries which are very interested in investing. Think about how much investment Reliance Jio has made in the last 1 month alone.
Mhm.
Not only the big investment made by Facebook itself, but
Yes.
there are about 4 or 5 major private equity guys, and that is about a 10 billion or more total investment out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
Think about that one.
Manipulate.
Despite all the problems we think about India, all the infrastructure things we worry about, power cut we talk about, that is mind-boggling number. Because Jio will become a retailer, by the way. It'll be as big a retailer as any big retailer you can find, online retailer. Will definitely compete Amazon in the Indian market, clearly. My rule of three theory is almost emerging pretty much. And as Jio, Reliance transformed the cell phone industry, became #1 out of nowhere, I think it has the potential to do it with deep pockets and universal presence. And to me, that's the new excitement about India. It can create a supply chain very quickly. In fact, let me take one more. If you don't want branded products, there is already a supply chain right now in place in consumer products. At the Diwali time, all the Indian diaspora would like to buy Diwali products made in India because they remember old recipes when they were growing up.
Mhm.
Today, actually at the Diwali time last year, Amazon alone had at least 50,000 merchants that sold their products, at least minimum, and millions of SKUs, stock keeping units, variety.
Absolutely.
And I think it's gonna grow enormously to the electronic platform. Supply chain will be organized more by electronic exchanges than, in fact, by direct to the consumer in many ways through gate platforms and the gates. Okay.
Yeah. So India should actually, take risk and, develop their own supply chain rather than, dependency on other countries too. Okay. Another kind of question coming from Pavitra Prakash is, aren't we overselling the new normal? I mean, public memories are very short-lived, right? The moment
True.
we are out of the lockdown, we go back doing what we were doing, right? So,
Yeah,
because,
so true.
through the internet, the geographies come down to zero, right? But we go back doing, you go back to your world, we go back to our world, and everything is
He's so right, and this is my weakness. I think about future so far out. It takes time to happen, and most people are directional and can change with a change in any leader, for example. But trend seems to be very true given the COVID phenomenon. Permanent trend is a very simple one. He says we'll have more bilateral agreements, not multilateral.
Okay.
We'll have less liberalized trade and more liberalized investment. Trade has to shift to investment. And I did a session on future of manufacturing. And one of the key things is that basically think global, which may have the same product design, but make it local.
Yes.
Which is not the same as the old theory where you have to localize the product to meet local requirements. Local requirements may be the same, but they don't want to have all made in one factory because that factory may be under a major COVID problem, and therefore the supply shuts out. Just like the oil embargo at one time. We had the same issues in the 70s. I think to me, COVID is nothing new. Same problem we struggle about who will supply the oil when 3 countries, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, decided not to supply. Okay, OPEC was created in the process. And that's very interesting. So I think one has to learn how to manage that by localizing manufacturing.
All right. So last 2 questions, our faculty, Dr. Vishal Kamra is asking, which strategies Indian organization have to formulate to face potential threat of new entrants in consumer and industrial markets at world level? Not only that India will get benefited, but there'll be a lot of other entrants because after the pandemic, China is supplying, all ventilators, masks to the other countries, right? Despite
right. 3 things. You cannot be a global supplier or even a domestic supplier anymore without having quality standards. You have to invest in the quality standards, which is both the process and technology, manufacturing, machinery, whatever you need. Relying on labor alone is not the future, which is why I said low tech to high tech. you have to have more automation in the factory going forward, whether you like it or not, okay? So that's clearly one requirement. Global standards, which leads to more automation. Second one clearly has to do with branding. We just don't invest in branding for global markets. It's doing quite well in India. India is a huge market. Why struggle with global markets? So we don't have the incentives or the drive to compete globally. But it's very possible, especially in small and medium enterprises. We have some great companies. I mean, Haldiram is a great snack maker. So is, in fact, the Chyawanprash company, you know,
Dabur.
that makes Dabur, for example. So world-class brand. Its packaging, its presentation has to become more global standards, which we are doing much better today. And my memories are old memories where we used to get everything wrapped in a newspaper, okay? That was
We get it all in US stores. We get all Dabur products, right? Everything.
Exactly, exactly. So that's the second major thing, that you have to invest in branding and packaging. And the third thing is really, I think we have to learn to say, how can I be more competitive? We simply are coasting because in family-run businesses, grandfather starts the business, people are coasting in the business. It's a nice lifestyle. There's no ambition to say, I can do better and ramp up this business to the next level. That kind of an ambition has to come, as it came with Wipro, with Azim Premji ramping up from Vanaspati to where it is, for example, as it has come in Reliance from the father, what father did as a trader. How can we go from that to what the Ambani brothers have done, or Mukesh Ambani, to a very different plateau altogether? As it is true with Aditya Birla Group, Kamal, Birla, who is a young person, has totally ramped up the company. As it is in many, it's very doable, but you have to have people who succeed in the family business from family, who are not treating this as a lifestyle business.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, most of these family businesses, Birla, Tata, they get killed at the third generation level, right? Is there a problem in hand?
No, it's a little more complicated than that. There's a very, no, it's family situation, as it has happened with the Birla Group historically, as it is.
Modi is one of the
No.
examples. Modi's.
No, I think we are imagining, as it is in Murugappa Group, they have a code of conduct for family succession.
Yes.
And what is the role of a daughter-in-law who marries in the family? Because and it happens at the third generation, absolutely.
Yes.
Have you seen every major family in India has a dispute?
Yes.
Not the brothers, but the grandsons, whatever because there are many more, each one is modernized, has a different approach than parents' approach, etc. And you see fights, public fights. Bajaj family had a public fight,
Yes.
Ambani's had a public fight. I mean, it's all in the newspapers. This is mind-boggling. Murugappa Group was the only one that has decided to create a family code of conduct. If you're going to be large enterprise run by the family primarily, even though it may be stock market exchange, you either go the Tata Sons model,
Yes.
where there is no dominance of any one family in many ways, or India may have a diversified portfolio, not even listed. Tata Sons is not even listed. That's a different model. Or you divide the business and give each business to a separate successor in the family, so that one does the automobile, one does the chemicals, one does the cell phone, whatever they do.
Okay. So I'll ask you the last question from my end, then over to Professor J.K. Sharma and our Vice Chancellor. So you mentioned that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has a good chemistry with the world leaders.
Yes.
So my question stems out from there, this statement only. That do you think the economic, advantages or economic criteria take precedence over the chemistry part of it? I mean, if it's in US interest economically, will they even consider the chemistry part? And that is true for other world leaders also.
Let me add to the question.
Yes, sir.
Will this relationship will drive something to the economical advantage of the country?
Exactly. I would say the leadership is a necessary condition for future economic investments or alignment, or even a political military alignment. I totally convinced. Leadership matters.
Yes.
And the advantage Prime Minister Modi has that he does his homework. Most leaders just go there to shake hands. If you look at our history of leaders who have gone, they themselves were not thinking strategically about the country itself, future about the country, and what is the negotiating point. But more importantly, like anything else, it's a personal chemistry that you have learned how to. And the only way you become comfortable with everybody else is not to have a value judgment to say, because he's eating meat, he must be a bad person. I'm a vegetarian.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I do meditation and yoga. He does not do it, therefore must be a bad person. Does not believe in Ayurvedic medicine. He's taking all the allopathic medicine, must be a bad person. You cannot be judgmental.
Yes.
Best people, human beings, are less judgmental generally. They're open to and they're obsessed about learning from others, and you rise to that level. And to me, I must tell you, it's not praising him, but I've not seen too many leaders all over the world who have risen to that level.
Okay.
There are very few, very few. Even well-respected leaders like Winston Churchill, for example, or in our case, our leaders, for example, all had different relationships with people. To rise to this complex world, and personalities like Putin, Angela Merkel, who all come with different backgrounds in their training, in their own early careers, wherever they came from, different educational systems, different ideologies, it is not easy at all. It's very tough to manage.
Yes.
And still keep up the, which means you can personally phone call and call it up, and they will open up the channel for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you very much. Over
Thank
to
you.
Professor J.K. Sharma and Vice Chancellor, Madam Shukla.
So
So if
it
you
is-
have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise,
I
So-
need to go pretty soon.
Professor, it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks. We are really thankful, Professor Seth, for your most engaging and fascinating session. And we are really grateful that you accepted the invitation from our institution and university and delivered this extremely enriching session on role of India in new world order. As suggested by you, I hope India uses its valuable ingredients to play an important role in the new world order. It is also my great honor and privilege for all of us at MIT University and MIT Business School in particular, that our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Madam, has graciously accepted our invitation to be there in the presentation through Professor Baba Seth. We are really thankful, Madam, that you had accepted our invitation to be amongst all of us. It has really increased our morale to do such sessions more in future. I really, on behalf of everyone from MIT University, wants to thank all of you present in this session for their presence here, and very good evening. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
ma'am, you want to say something? VC ma'am, you are on mute, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to thank Professor Seth for excellent talk by him, and where the describing the old world order and the new world disorder and how it's going to change. The people always look towards west. Now it's going to be towards east. What the new dynamics is going to be there between the various countries, and what important role India can play. And looking to the from the domestic to the global, and investing more in the technology and the high tech side, if really want to be playing the important role, because the technology is going to be very, very important aspect. So I'm extremely grateful to Professor Seth for sparing the time and sharing his thoughts. It is the presentation which you have made is a lot of thinking, deep analytical study, and which is brought this, that your experience and I'm sure all my the faculty, the student, and the people from outside who all are attending it, it has given the new insight to them, understanding the future perspective in the word disorder. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we look forward to your presence in campus whenever the
Yes,
normal
sure.
situation comes. Until that time, please take care of yourself, take care of the
Thank
family,
you.
and stay safe. And we wish that soon this pandemic will be over and we will get into the new normal,
Yeah.
and which we yet to know that what is going to be that new normal. Campus life is different now. And I
Very
know the
different.
universities in the US also are struggling and finding the way out how to serve its students, because the most important customers are the stakeholders, are the students, how to serve them because they are the spread word over, and how it's going to impact the education sector. And let's see that how the new, what new is going to come in the education.
Right.
And maybe that we'll see the maybe next 6 months, many new things will come from the education institutions also. So thank you very much, and
Thank you.
take care.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye
Ma'am,
bye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.